Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another episode of Understanding the Qur'an. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be on each and every one of you. We continue in this episode to look at the building of the barrier by Dhul Qarnayn, the righteous servant of Allah, who provided for a people and for the people of the earth a barrier which would prevent a destructive nation known as the Gog and the Magog from creating havoc throughout this earth. In verse 97, Allah described that the barrier was such that they couldn't climb over it, nor could they tunnel through it. Now, Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, gave us further details as to what is taking place. He explained that every day the Gog and the Magog people attack that barrier, trying to bore their way through it, and they will tunnel through sections of it till they reach virtually the outer edge. A small hole or crack will appear and some light will come through, but by the time they reach that point, they're exhausted. Their efforts have exhausted them. So they go and they take rest. But by the time they come back the next day, it's been sealed up again. They have to try again elsewhere, so they're digging again. And each day they're attacking that barrier continually, trying to bore their way through. And they will continue to do that until one day, when they go and they make that crack and the light comes through, they go and rest. When they come back, it is still there. The day had come, and they would eventually break through and come into our world and create the havoc which is described in the coming verses. Now, some Orientalists and others have raised the question as to how there could be such a huge wall made of iron and brass on the earth, which no one has ever seen. Archaeologists have not found any traces of such structures. And with all the satellite mapping of the earth, etc., where could this possible structure be? However, due to many major geological changes which have taken place on the earth, whether it is the eruption of volcanoes, or it is the earthquakes and a variety of other things, flooding in different areas. We've had even the ice age, ice covering vast areas of land, which is receding in this point in time, coming back at different phases. All of this stuff has taken place. Places which were green, vegetable became desert. Other areas are lush. Lush vegetation has even hidden. For example, you have, places in Central America where the Aztecs and the Incas were. Their cities and that, are discovered, and people have discovered them in the, in the jungle. They were so covered over by jungle. There was a point where there was no jungle there. They had beaten it back, or created a civilization, the Aztecs and the Incas, the Olmecs, etc. of, Central and South America. It's only recent times that people discovered some of their structures, etc. And even in Egypt today, we're finding pyramids buried under the sand, segments of them buried under the sand. So, with all this geological changes that have taken place on the earth, it's quite possible that they could be in an area. The wall could be in an area which is now covered by snow due to the cold, or in areas of the earth where it's very hot, it's be covered by sand. Or in areas where, there's lush jungle, etc., etc., the jungle has covered it. And this cannot be spotted by satellite imagery. So, even if we took this back to the issue of, for example, of the city of Iram Dhat al-Imad, which Allah speaks about in one of the chapters towards the end of the Qur'an. And early Orientalists and others thought that this was some fictitious place. However, in the last 20 years, research being done in Syria, the town and the city of Al, which was not even known of before. People didn't even know it existed. It turns out the Albas turns out to be an area with massive information and civilization which had developed there, equivalent to that of Egypt and Mesopotamia. I mean, though people didn't even know it hardly existed. Virtually no reference is made to it. And they found this massive civilization, and they found their, cuneiform tablets, etc., a trove, a whole library of it, more than had been found in all the previous years of research. And in the course of reading these things, they found reference to Aram. Aram, mentioned in the Qur'an, is mentioned there. And American archaeologists have, with the help of satellite imagery, looked in parts of Arabia and in the Wabul Khali, or the empty quarter. They found what seemed to be trails which seemed to be leading to a particular part of the desert. They went there and began digging under the sand and found Aram, what they believed to be in fact Aram. So let us not be surprised, be incredulous about the idea that Dhul Qarnayn, thousands of years ago, many thousands of years ago, so we don't know exactly when his time was, built a barrier. And even if we were to reflect, we know that there is a world parallel to our world, the world of the jinn, and that they are invisible to us normally. That they can sometimes come into our world. This is something which Muslims believe in because of the information which the Prophet has given us. May God's peace and blessing be upon him. The Qur'an has described. In other societies, these forces are called, demons and a variety of other names, sprites and leprechauns or whatever, Yeah, all societies have something of the supernatural there, of supernatural beings, etc., etc. And Islam is very clearly defined. The point that we have this existing, could it not be that the Gog and the Magog are in another dimension? Who knows? Perhaps on another planet. Who knows? Dhul Qarnayn was given knowledge. He went to the Far East, the Far West. Where is this journey? Who are these people that he has met? We don't know. Maybe it's on Mars. Maybe it's on the moon. Maybe it's another planet in our solar system. This is where he went to. I mean, a person might say, well, travel in space, we're just only discovering it now. But in reality, who is to say that people of the past did not at one point travel in space too? We don't know. We really don't know this. They have found, for example, amongst the Aztecs who used stone tools to build their pyramids there. They found mirrors which were polished, and shiny to a degree, which today it requires precision machinery to create. And scientists, archaeologists are amazed. How in the world did they do this? With stone tools. The Egyptians, how did they embalm these people? I mean, today we've managed, in modern times with embalming methods to embalm certain people like Mao Zedong and Lenin and others, been preserved for 10s, 50 years. How did the people of the past do these things? Till today, the actual embalming techniques are unknown. How did they even build the pyramids? I mean, the places the blocks came from are far away. I mean, there's so many questions that exist about things that took place in the past. And Allah tells us in the Qur'an, in many places, that the people of the past, there are nations among them who went far beyond anything that we have reached. So let us not become, doubtful about the issue of this barrier because we can't see it today. I mean, if it's 100 years from now, or 200 years from now, or 50 years from now, when it's finally discovered, or when it breaks and find out the Gog and the Magog, this is only proof for those people at that time of the truth of the Qur'an. For now, where we don't have the physical evidence, we believe it. As there have been so many other things that the Qur'an has spoken about, the Prophet Musa has given us details about, and we've come to find it in our own time. So Allah goes on to quote Dhul Qarnayn after building this barrier which the Gog and the Magog people could not penetrate. They could not bore through it, nor could they climb over it. After looking at his creation, what he had done, Allah described his admiration, saying in the 98th verse,
قال هذا رحمة من ربي فإذا جاء وعد ربي جعله دكاء وكان وعد ربي حقا.
He exclaimed, "This is a mercy from my Lord. But when my Lord's promise comes to pass, he will level it, and my Lord's promise is always true." Looking at this creation, this massive barrier, Dhul-Qarnayn recognizes it as being a mercy from his Lord. Allah had given him the knowledge, the means, the ability, and he created this. It is mercy from his Lord. It's his act, but it is by that knowledge that he was able to do it. And he recognizes, and he quotes, and he warns that when the promise of Allah comes true, the end of the world comes, then this barrier which will hold these people back all of these centuries, thousands of years, it will fall, it will crumble, because Allah's promise is true.
Let's learn from the panel of learned scholars as they focus on the various aspects of the Islamic faith.
Prophet ﷺ told us that the best among you are those who are best to their wives.
Asim al-Hakim.
Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. This is the Prophet of Islam ﷺ.
Salim al-Amri.
Seeking knowledge is obligatory on every Muslim.
Dr. Bilal Phillips.
Before you come to the university, you will have good knowledge.
Dr. Jafar Idris.
To have a balance in their character, in Islamic character.
Dr. Mamdouh Muhammad.
Whatever you do, do not contradict that.
Hussein B.
Come to prayer, come to success.
Musa Sarantonio.
The step towards Allah, towards God.
Dr. Ahmad Ibn Saifuddin. A series of significant aspects of Islam under scrutiny. In Islam Under Microscope, every Sunday at 9 p.m. Saudi Arabia and 11:30 p.m. India on Peace TV.
Tawheed is the basis of Islam. Submission to God. Character is shaped by faith. Belief in God and righteous conduct can never be separated. Learn how Tawheed builds character with me, Yahya Ibrahim, only on Peace TV.
Visualize the character which uproots darkness and stands firm against every injustice. Join Yahya Ibrahim in Tawheed Builds Character every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Saudi Arabia and 5:30 p.m. UAE on Peace TV. Courage it takes to stand up for what you believe in. Courage it takes to be true and righteous. Courage it takes to dare and answer your questions, be they social, political, economic, educational, or religious. To get clear and convincing answers,
test your courage and question me in Dare to Ask.
Dare to Ask, next on Peace TV.
They have found, for example, amongst the Aztecs who used stone tools to build their pyramids there. They found mirrors which were polished, you know, and shiny to a degree, which today it requires precision machinery to create. And scientists, archaeologists are amazed. How in the world did they do this? With stone tools. The Egyptians, how did they embalm these people? I mean, today we've managed, you know, in modern times with embalming methods to embalm certain people like Mao Zedong and Lenin and others, you know, been preserved for 10s, 50 years. How did the people of the past do these things? Till today, the actual embalming techniques are unknown. How did they even build the pyramids? I mean, the places where blocks came from are far away. I mean, there's so many questions that exist about things that took place in the past. And Allah tells us in the Qur'an, in many places, that the people of the past, there are nations among them who went far beyond anything that we have reached. So, let us not become, you know, doubtful about the issue of this barrier because we can't see it today. I mean, if it's 100 years from now, or 200 years from now, or 50 years from now, when it's finally discovered, or when it breaks and we find out about Gog and the Magog, this is only proof for those people at that time of the truth of the Qur'an. For now, where we don't have physical evidence, we believe it. As there have been so many other things that the Qur'an has spoken about, the Prophet Musa has given us details about, and we have come to find it in our own time. So Allah goes on to quote Dhul Qarnayn after building this barrier, which the Gog and the Magog people could not penetrate, could not bore through it, nor could they climb over it. After looking at his creation, what he's done, Allah describes his admiration, saying in the 98th verse,
قال هذا رحمة من ربي فإذا جاء وعد ربي جعله دكاء وكان وعد ربي حقا.
He exclaimed, "This is a mercy from my Lord. But when my Lord's promise comes to pass, he will level it, and my Lord's promise is always true." Looking at this creation, this massive barrier, Dhul Qarnayn recognizes it as being a mercy from his Lord. Allah had given him the knowledge, the means, the ability, and he created this. It is a mercy from his Lord. It's his act, but it is by that knowledge he was able to do it. And he recognizes, he quotes, and he warns that when the promise of Allah comes true, the end of the world comes, then this barrier which will hold people back all of these centuries, thousands of years, it will fall, it will crumble, because Allah's promise is true. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had said in an authentic tradition that during his own time, the angel who was to blow that trumpet had already taken it up in his hand, bent his head backwards, ready to blow it, awaiting the command of Allah. The hour is near. Of course, that was 1,400 years ago. Nearness, when we look at the earth being some 4 billion plus years, or exactly how old it is, we don't know, but it's well over 4 billion years. What is 1,500 or 1,400 years in 4 billion? It's like a minute or a second in relationship to a year. Very close. So the hour is close. There is a nation also for Zainab bint Jahsh, one of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, who had been married to his adopted son. She said, the Prophet ﷺ on one occasion said, "Woe to the Arabs for the great evil that has approached them. A hole is opened in the dam of the Gog and the Magog," like this. He made a gesture. Zainab asked, "O Messenger of Allah, shall we be destroyed though there will be righteous people among us?" And he replied, "Yes, if the evil deeds become plentiful." This is a warning from the Prophet ﷺ, from Allah, that destruction will strike, and when it does, the righteous will not be spared. In the past, when we read of the stories of the prophets of the past, whenever destruction was coming to those people for disobeying Allah, etc., the righteous would be spared and would escape, whether it is with Prophet in the ship, the ark, or whether it was in the with Prophet Lot and his people. They escaped the destruction, and so on and so forth. But after the prophets, destruction would come. Whenever evil became plentiful, even though there are righteous people there, the destruction would come. It's the responsibility of those who are righteous to command the good, to try to stop that evil. And Allah warns elsewhere in the Qur'an to fear or to beware of a fitna which will not only befall the evil, but will catch everybody. So where evil increases, those who are righteous have to speak out. They have to stand forth, be counted, to try to hold that evil back. Otherwise Allah's calamities, His punishments will come and it will catch everyone. In the following verse, verse 99, Allah describes the last day, a picture or an image from some of the incidents of the last days of the earth, of this world. He says there,
وتركنا بعضهم يومئذ يموج في بعض ونفخ في الصور فجعلناهم جمعا.
On that day I will let them surge in waves over each other. Then the trumpet will be blown and I will collect all of them together. On the day when the wall crumbles, when the Gog and the Magog are able to finally tunnel their way through. This occurs shortly after the killing of the Antichrist, the Dajjal. Prophet Musa explained to us that the Mahdi, amongst the major signs, the Mahdi, an individual from amongst Muslims, will establish Allah's rule across the earth for a period of time. And then the Antichrist, Al-Masih Dajjal, the false Messiah, will appear and he will establish his rule. His rule will be for 40 days. The first of those days will be like 1 year. Second will be like a month. The third like a week, and the rest of the days like normal days. And at the end of his rule, as he is able to gain control over most of the land and battles focus on Jerusalem, Prophet Isa will descend and take command of the Muslim forces, and he will defeat Dajjal, kill him by his own hand. And whilst the Muslims are cheering, people are celebrating the victory and destruction of Dajjal, the Antichrist, then Prophet Isa will be informed by Allah that another trial is coming. the Gog and the Magog people. And in the coming segment, we will look at more detail about what happens in the time of the Gog and the Magog. With that, dear viewers, I'd like to thank you for being with us on this segment of our program, Understanding the Qur'an, where we're looking at the last verses of Surah Al-Kahf, the 18th chapter of the Qur'an, known in English as the Cave. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
If I were to ask you about the life of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam,